Lời đầu tiên xin chào các độc giả đã đến với website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com. Khi tìm đến với website rèn luyện kỹ năng, chắc hẳn bạn đang mong muốn tìm cho mình một công cụ tốt nhất trong quá trình rèn luyện kỹ năng. Kỹ năng ở đây có thể là kỹ năng lãnh đạo, kỹ năng bán hàng, kỹ năng mềm, kỹ năng sống và rất nhiều các kỹ năng khác. Thông thường khi nghĩ đến việc rèn luyện các kỹ năng như chúng tôi đã đề cập ở trên, chúng ta thường hay nghĩ đến việc tìm mua cái đầu sách hoặc tham gia các chương trình hội thảo. Nhưng trong cuộc sống bận rộn của thế kỷ 21, thời gian và tiền bạc là hai thứ luôn bị giới hạn nhiều nhất. Với sự ra đời của website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com, chúng tôi mang đến cho bạn một công cụ tốt hơn trong việc rèn luyện kỹ năng của mình, đó chính là các DVD rèn luyện kỹ năng. Bạn sẽ không còn phải tốn quá nhiều thời gian để đọc sách hay tốn quá nhiều tài chính để tham gia các chương trình hội thảo. Chỉ cần bỏ DVD vào đầu máy, ngay lập tức bạn đã có thể tận hưởng những thước phim quý giá được chia sẻ từ các diễn giả nổi tiếng tại Việt Nam và trên thế giới. Website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com cung cấp đầy đủ cho bạn các DVD rèn luyện kỹ năng trên nhiều lĩnh vực. Tất cả các DVD rèn luyện kỹ năng của các diễn giả nước ngoài có tại website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com đều có phụ đề 100%, hỗ trợ tối đa cho quý độc giả khi theo dõi. Rèn luyện kỹ năng.com cam kết chất lượng tất cả các DVD khi cung cấp cho quý khách hàng. Với hân hạnh được phục vụ cho rất nhiều các khách hàng trên cả nước. Chỉ cần click đặt hàng, trong vòng 1 đến 3 ngày, bạn đã có thể cầm sản phẩm trong tay. Rèn luyện kỹ năng hân hạnh được phục vụ quý khách.
Talk about your favorite subject next, and that would be attitude. You know, I have a definition of attitude that I'm sure came from a lot of influence from you, but I define it as that state of mind through which you filter all information and make all decisions. How has speaking about attitude all of these years affected people's lives? How important is it?
I think, of course, that your attitude is the beginning point of all progress. But attitude towards you, attitude towards others, attitude towards your job, attitude towards your family. I mean, attitude encompasses all things, and it can be changed in an instant. Years ago, we were playing in a golf tournament out in Phoenix, Arizona. Weather was beautiful. The next day as we headed home, it was raining and hailing and so forth. We got soaking wet trying to unload our clubs, and there was a delay. Computers were down. We got to the gate agent there where we were checking in, you know, and you're talking about a fellow who had all the red licked off of his candy. I mean, he looked like the cruise director for the Titanic. He was catching it coming and going from all sides, and he was getting redder and redder and redder and angrier, you know, all the time. They blame him for the economy. They blame him for the weather. They blame him for the computer breakdowns. They blame him for everything. And when I got to him, you know, I said, "Well, how you doing?" He said, "Compared to who?" I said, compared to that person who doesn't have a job of any kind, compared to one who doesn't have a nice building to work in with nice clothes to wear and a future he can plan, compared to those people who live in lands where there's no freedom of speech or travel or those things or freedom of worship. I said, how you doing? Now, you're talking about a guy who had a huge change. He grinned so wide he could have eaten a banana sideways. I mean, it was just automatic. His man, I'm doing wonderfully well, and thank you for reminding me. Well, the guy got so excited he moved us up to first class, which I thought was pretty good. Now, the point I want to make is, had his supervisor come by while he was having all those difficulties, his job might well have been in jeopardy. Had the supervisor come by 10 seconds after we got past him, and I noticed as we were walking down the gateway to the entrance to the plane that he was greeting people in a very pleasant manner. It had changed in that long. Now, so what we need to do is we need to clearly understand the difference between responding to something and reacting to something. React is negative, respond is positive. You get sick, go to the doctor. Doctor gives you a prescription, says, see me tomorrow. You walk in the next day, the doctor shakes his head and says, oh, your body's reacting to the medicine. But if you get nervous, but if the doctor says, hey, it's working, your body's responding. So we need to understand, and one of my favorite little examples is if you're headed for work, minding your own business, and all of a sudden out of nowhere comes a car that cuts you off at the pass. You have to hit your brakes and you hit your horn and shake your fist, you know, and in so many words say, I got your tag number, buddy, and when I see you out here again, it's going to be me and you. And then when you get to work, what do? You tell the first person you see about these crazy drivers, guy must have been drunk or something, you know, and you tell the second person and the third person. And in the meantime, the fellow who had committed the dastardly deed rides merrily along, unaware that you even exist. And yet he's completely in control of your performance, your attitude, maybe even your career. It's the ultimate of all the put-downs. So when something like that happens, just say, well, brother, if you're in that big a hurry, go ahead. I'm not going to risk my life to try to take over with you. And I'm certainly not going to get in a violent argument with you, because some people carry guns. That's not smart. You respond, and over a period of time, you can build up an attitude reserve. Dr. Forrest Tennant is my source of this. He was the #1 drug authority in the country for years. He was the consultant for Texaco, consultant for the Justice Department, consultant for the National Football League. And he says that you can actually, by listening to inspirational information, it floods your system with dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and so forth, and you're energized physiologically. They now know also, because the new high-tech mic enabled them to take a microscope, enabled them to take pictures of every blood cell. At the end of every cell, there is a little blister. And in that is dopamine, norepinephrine, over 200 neurotransmitters. Now, that won't keep you from getting knocked down, but it gives you the opportunity to get up a lot faster, because the energy is there, the response is much faster. So that constant growth, listening and taking advantage of that attitude development which is there, is just a marvelous, marvelous example. The message is this: you don't drown by falling in water. You only drown if you stay there. You don't drown by you don't fail by getting knocked down. You only fail if you stay there. We can do something about it. Respond by building that emotional reserve, reading the good books, listening to the good messages, and so forth.
You know, you're talking about making a choice. You can choose to respond rather than react, and free yourself from being vulnerable to all the people out there that have issues and problems. It's an amazing way to live. You know, we look at people and we say that some see the glass half full, some see it half empty. Are they born that way, or is there something we can do to deliberately live our lives with a positive attitude?
Yeah, the psychologists say that half the people here in America are born that way, optimists, half are born pessimists. But the good news is that you can absolutely change. I have seen radical changes in literally hundreds and hundreds of lives, thousands of lives, over a period of time. And one of the things we point out is that we need to always be on the grow. Because, you know, the well-educated person of today is unqualified for the education, for the world of tomorrow. We've got to keep that growth going.
I have to share a story with you. As a very young man, I learned to say great when somebody asked me how I was doing. And even if I wasn't doing that great, I found that I was just a little bit better by having said it and playing that through my life. But one evening, I was in an aircraft by myself in the middle of the night over the King Ranch, which is 1 million acres of dark. And the engine oil began to leak from my engine. And it started to cover my windshield, and I realized that I had 5-10 minutes of flight left with 30 minutes to any major airport. So I turned towards the beach. And as the oil sheened over my windshield and out across my windows, I found myself in a black box in the middle of the night with nothing to see, even if I could look out of the window. the engine oil finished leaking out, it exploded, and I was on fire. And because I had a positive mental attitude, I was able to walk away from that incident. And it's an actual fact that developing a positive mental attitude saved my life that day. Because as every decision had to be made, it was made from a thoughtful, stable, peaceful position. And of course, the greatest thing was I knew that if I died, my eternity was already assured, which freed me to not panic, but to thoughtfully make the decisions so that I'm sitting here with you today. So I don't know if anybody's ever told you that helping them to build that positive mental attitude saved their life, but
he definitely responded instead of reacted.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
That's correct.
A positive mental attitude definitely fuels our passion for whatever it is that drives us. And I know how passionate you are about everything you do. And in the short time I've been around Gary, I can sense his passion for what he does. Talk to us about passion, and for the viewers that are out there watching that might be involved in things that they're not passionate about, how can they get the courage to make the transformation and get involved in the things that they truly are passionate about in their heart that maybe they're not involved in today?
Well, Dave, let me say this, that